Thank you so much for tuning in with me on this Monday live Q&A broadcast. It's always wonderful to have people right here with me live right now, so thank you. And please, if you have a question or a thought that you wanted to ask me, remember that I'm broadcasting for 30 minutes, so whenever you're ready, chime in as soon as possible so I can respond to you immediately. Tonight we're talking about something that is pretty uncomfortable most of the time for us, and there are reasons for that. It doesn't need to be uncomfortable. It's blame. And then people criticize us for playing the blame game. Well, if we do that, there are systems of reasons why we do. And so way back in the beginning, ooh, I've got a guest. Thank you. Way back in the beginning, we learn by sincerely being obedient to our parents. And so one of the things underlying most of the difficulties that we have in life are what I call times and traditions. So the times we're born into and the traditions which we are taught. So our parents teach us consciously and unconsciously by how they choose to live, communicate, and treat us. And we're little kids, we're sincere, we're obedient, and we do the best that we can to please our parents. Now, if our parents really don't know how to grow a child and help a child through the clumsinesses of life without punishing them too stringently, then we don't have these needs to defend ourselves and to control things. But that pretty much doesn't happen, where none of us are perfect, and most of us haven't learned the newest psychology. I keep up with it as best that I can, but only certain parts of it. And if you want to know the best developmental psychologist of all time, I am just at the feet of Dr. Gordon Neufeld. I'm going to type his name here because he's teaching us what as parents works with our kids without treating them in a way where they start getting defensive and afraid and then against us rather than with us. So I'm just going to put his name here, and you can find him on his wonderful website in many languages, and you can also find him lecturing on YouTube. YouTube, most of us are there now. When we're generous, we put something on YouTube and people can find it when they're looking for something sincerely and they want to help. Or just for fun too, of course, goodness knows. So tonight it's the blame game versus action and accountability. Now some of that sounds kind of grown up, kind of, okay, you have to be responsible. Well, yes, but not without negativity, not without, we want to be responsible, but without negativity, without feeling defensive, without feeling threatened. We want to know how to handle ourselves. Full screen, please. How do I do that? I'm not on full screen. Is this full screen? No, it's not. I'm wondering if that might help you. I don't think so, though. If Jack is listening, he will be here and he will help us figure it out. Okay. So I'm gathering bits and pieces of the information for my book, and my book, Rebuilding Trust, How Couples Start Over. But this is true for so many of our relationships, whether it's with our little kids, whether it was us with our parents as adults today, or how we handle ourselves in our friendly relationships, our business relationships. So one of the things that we get stuck with sometimes, especially when it's a difficulty. So, for example, in rebuilding trust, when trust has been broken, whether it's with a friend or a relative or your spouse or your beloved, the natural thing when something goes wrong is we want to figure out why it went wrong. So Jack says, push the transition button. I did. Is that good? I don't know. When we want to find out what went wrong, of course, because we want to make it right, or we want to prevent it in the future, or we want to know why this happened, and if we don't know how, okay, I did. I'm pushing the transition button. You guys, thank you for hanging in there with me. There's a natural impulse we have if we've been scared as children to avoid disapproval, to avoid being confronted. This relates to something that you'll find sometimes where people talk about constructive criticism. There is no such thing. Criticism is hurtful, inappropriate, doesn't work, and makes things worse. So if you know Dr. John Gottman's work, he's one of my great heroes in the world of relationships and marriage. He talks about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Those 4 things are the things that are going to break down a marriage very quickly. And it's true for any relationship. And the number 1 horseman is criticism. We don't want criticism. We're interested and curious in improving, in fixing things, and making it better. But criticism, I don't know anybody that responds to criticism in a positive way. We're sensitive to it. It's a hit. So criticism is never constructive. We want to be able to frame the things that need improvement or the things that have gone wrong without criticizing. Because it's rare, it's very rare, when people actively want to be mean. There are times when people want to be mean, when they are mean, or when they are extremely unhealthy. In that case, criticism is probably just going to make it worse, and you want to talk to a professional or an elder of some sort. So if we get criticized, if we get insulted, which is an escalation of criticism, those are the first 2 horsemen of the apocalypse. Then the second 2 are a result of the first 2, I think. The third one is being defensive, and the 4th one is stonewalling, which is refusing to talk. And those are compensatory activities against being criticized and insulted. So we don't want to go there. Criticism usually comes from an experience that we have that's a hardship or a hurt or an injury, a betrayal, or a lost trust. I don't advocate that. I don't teach that. And I want us to get past that as quickly as possible because it'll just make things worse. So what do we do? What do we do instead of blaming? And then how do we take accountability? How do we take responsibility for the difficulty, especially when it didn't start with us? That's the piece. So whatever back and forth, whatever relationship we're in, we are part of it. And so when I see a couple and trust has been broken, well, we've got 2 people and the relationship is 50-50. These are very different parts. But unless someone is very unhealthy or living with PTSD or addiction or something that is a deep wound that needs to be healed, or if something is wrong in the relationship, we don't naturally betray each other. We want to be faithful. We want to do the right thing naturally. So if someone betrays trust, I want to know why. And I'm not looking to say, well, it's your fault, or to place blame. I'm looking for, and I want you to consider this carefully, I'm looking for what is missing. I'm in the detective mode. I'm looking for clues. What was missing? Because people aren't naturally mean or try to hurt somebody else. Something was missing. And if it's a betrayal of trust, sometimes, frankly, one of the persons in the relationship hasn't been looking for an intimate relationship. So that involvement, that investment is missing. And then it's their decision. Do they want an intimate relationship? Which means I give you, like in a marriage, for better or for worse, all that I have, all that I am. If I can't do that, I probably can't be truly intimate. Some people want a relationship like that. Most people don't. And that's when they feel as if their trust has been betrayed. So, when I'm looking for how the trust has been betrayed, I've got various systems of investigative tools to hunt down the clues. Okay, let me see here. So, number one, this is, there you see it. This is the cartoon that little kids are taught by their parents. And so I mentioned this in my last broadcast, that we kind of get the rules for life in a black and white concept because it's for the small ones. It's for kids. It's for people that are not yet thinking beyond black and white. And so we want to make it simple. And yes, these are the nice, simple rules that are appropriate for a child. But they're not going to work in adulthood. And if they don't work and nobody has helped us figure out what instead, then guess what? We're going to try and live according to that cartoon and be discouraged or betray trust, be blindsided, be wondering what happened, why did you treat me that way? So if we look at this, and you've probably been looking at it as I'm talking, the second one, the smart plus heart equals wisdom. So my guest says, I think, or no, he wants an intimate relationship, but he keeps criticizing. What should I do then? Beautiful question. So what you need him to know is that criticizing is not working and it's actually making it worse. Then what needs to happen is constructive communication, not criticism, but constructive communication. So an earlier broadcast I did, and people will remember this, it's called the Bunny Yabbit and Rabbit Yabbit game, which usually involves criticism. It's the foundation of understanding how we stop the black and white arguments and the criticisms, and we talk for each person together so that we're communicating fully about one person's view and then fully about the other person's view, so that both people get heard. So you get very clear about where their dissatisfaction is coming from. So that it's a dissatisfaction, and the old way is this black and white thing here, this black and white, it's either right or wrong. Well, there's a problem there, because if it's right or wrong, that's old-fashioned. It's the old tradition. It's reward and punishment. It doesn't work. Punishment is abuse, and that's illegal in our country. And rewards pretty much are bribery. That's also illegal in our country. So criticism, punishment, bribery, they're outdated. We know so much now, and it's not what civilized people do. So we want to not just have the black and white, which is reward and punishment, right and wrong, us and them. You see it immediately creates prejudice and judgment and criticism. What we want is the bottom of the chart, which is the colors. This is beyond black and white thinking to the colors of real life. So when we add in the heart, that's when we get colors. So I want to show you this, the 3 parts of the brain. This is underneath how our parents taught us old traditions that were black and white and didn't really work. Part of it was because it was survival. Part of it they weren't educated. Part of it that we really haven't understood psychology or communication until the last few decades, really. And believe me, what I share with you, I'm making it up. Over the last couple of decades, I've been making this up so that I can teach quickly, because I'm a pioneer in a pioneering field. So there are 3 parts of the brain. The one at the top, the head or thinking. There are certain types that their favorite way of using their mind is thought. And a lot of mine is, I'm a knowledge worker, right? So a lot of what I do is thought. And so when we use thought and something goes bad or wrong, we get anxious, we get scared. When we are chiefly the heart, the emotions or heart types, and I'm speaking from my best tool, which is the Enneagram, and you may or may not know your Ennea type. But even if you don't, this should make sense to you immediately. So the heart types, that's me. And so those are those of us who have low self-esteem when we're threatened, or when we feel guilty or ashamed, and if there's something wrong, we want to know what it is that we need to do to make it right, because we always take guilt. We're too accountable. And then the one at the bottom is the instinctual type, and this is action types. And when they encounter a difficulty, they get frustrated and controlling and then angry. So depending on who you're in a relationship with, you're going to have a feeling for whether they're a head type, an anxiety type, a heart type, a self-doubt type, or an action type, which is a control type, or an anger type. Now, since we know those, remember the cartoon. The smart adds to the head the heart. So there's so much that we have today that's too cerebral, too logical, too intellectual, and in essence too heartless. Wisdom comes from connecting your intelligence to your compassion. And if we connect the heart, the compassion, to the head, we get wisdom. And then we behave, I think, like a true adult. Where we say it's not black and white. There's always something here to learn. There's always something here to process or figure out or work through. We're not going to just go off impulsively. We want to stop and figure it out and do what is the wise thing to do, not what is a reward, not what is a punishment. So when we're looking at a broken trust, we can use the black and white, and as Dominique says, he keeps criticizing, it's not going to work. It just will make you feel bad, and it's a black and white because it's like you did something wrong. Well, let's figure it out. If I did something wrong, it wasn't my intention to cause harm. So instead of pointing the finger and saying, you're the problem and you're the fault, what I want us to do as adults, because the little kids are going to do that, and what we want to do is bring them on our lap, sit beside them, talk to them. Well, let's really think this through. How did this all happen? Not who did it, who was wrong, who started it. How many times have we heard that or said it? It doesn't go anywhere positive. It's not wisdom. It is not respectful. And so when I think about how we want to be adults and show the kids what's truly good, this is my way of introducing that. And I think that this human life is relatable to any fundamental truth of goodness. And so if we look at human life, really I think that we can bring it all down to these 5 truths. The sanctity of life, or being respectful, which means if we respect life, we're going to build trust and we're going to have trust. The second thing is we're here to love and be loved, the bonds of caring, where we connect with our tribe. The third one is I want to be good at something. I want to be competent at something. I want to have the self-esteem that I know that I'm a can-do kid or I'm a competent person, so that I feel worthwhile because I've got something to offer. And I want the adults in my life to help me master that so that I know that I'm good at it. And then the fourth thing is the strength to overcome, which means we all have hardships, ordeals, suffering, something that we have to heal or transform. We want to look at that and embrace it. Especially as adults, we want to know it well. And then we want to teach the kids, yeah, sometimes there is a hardship. Sometimes there is a wound. And yep, we know what to do. We have the strength to overcome. We have the strength to heal. We know how to do this, which gives us the freedom to be true to ourselves, even in the face of hardships. And then the fifth fundamental good is a mission in life. I want to make a difference in the world. We all do. We want to use our talents to make a difference. And we want to do that with fairness and integrity. So when we look at these 5 basic tenets of goodness and truth, there's not betrayal in here. There's not criticism in here. There's not placing blame and guilt in here. It says, these are my responsibilities. So when I find people are usually inadvertently, they don't mean to be mean, and I find that they're placing blame, one of the things that like a gesture, I guess, a mudra that I use is, we don't want to point the finger of blame. And I don't want you to catch me pointing the finger of blame, because I want to be more mature than that. I want to be more artful than that. I want to have better control over my talents than that. And if I catch myself pointing the finger of blame, it's like, whoops, I really want to get my finger pointed here. If I point the finger at myself and say, what do I do? If I point the finger at myself and say, what is my part in this? Now, my part may not be very obvious because, I'm one of those people who takes guilt and wants to make things right. Sometimes my part is not speaking up. Sometimes my part is not speaking up in a way where I'm heard, or a way that's effective, or in an understandable way so that I can have my part understood and I can do something about it. So I think of accountability. We want to take accountability because what that does is it guarantees we don't find ourselves in the role of being a victim, of being powerless. There's always something that we can do, some constructive thing that we can do. And frankly, sometimes, given the circumstances or the people around us, the only constructive thing we can do is internally. And that means connecting the head and the heart and finding a way to know what you want to do with this, so that you have the sense, so that we have the sense that we know our part, we know what we do well, and we know how to adjust to this. So I like the idea of responsibility is how I respond. Rather than respond with pointing the finger there and wanting revenge or wanting to get somebody to feel as bad as I do, I want to point the finger here to say, I am going to respond. I'm going to be responsible. I am taking accountability for my part. Now, I don't want us to take responsibility or accountability for another person's part, because that's theirs. However, my part sometimes is communicating in a way where I'm heard. And so like you said, Dominique, if he keeps criticizing, then your curiosity and your journey would be to figure out how to communicate in a very intelligent and clear way so that he understands how criticism is harmful to you. Not that he's a bad person, not that you're blaming him, but how it's harmful to you and what it is that you respond to, responsibility, what it is that you respond to well, and that you're very willing to improve or to figure this out or to solve this problem. I hope that helps. Let's see. I wanted also to share something else with you. This is a model that I created to help us think about things beyond black and white through the adult view, where what's in the healthy of these 7 lifetime dilemmas and these the 5 tenets of truth that I shared with you earlier fit into this model handily. So in the middle is healthy, and we move away from the center, either sides of the continuum, to what's unhealthy. And that's how we know when we need to correct something. So one of the things that we've been talking about tonight is about the number 7 dilemma, which is on character and integrity. So notice that if you go off to the left here, we are very familiar with the corrupt cheater, the unethical betrayer. And so then, that's broken trust. And the foundation of my work is rebuilding trust. How couples start over. Well, rebuilding trust, if you've been cheated on and betrayed, notice if you go to the other side of the continuum, the judging saint, the righteous betrayer, and this is where we're criticizing. This is where we're saying, well, you're bad and wrong, you did something wrong, I'm holier than thou, and I am not to blame here. Uh-oh. The judging saint is just as unhealthy as the liar and cheater. Isn't that interesting? Because that judging saint, there's the constructive criticism, so to speak, right? Well, it's prejudiced. It's unfair, it's unkind, and unwise. So, when we have a difficulty, if we catch ourselves blaming someone else, we've put ourselves in the role of being victimized. Now, sometimes we are victimized when it's an extreme problem, when we've been really violated, and that's a whole nother conversation, isn't it? But when something bad has happened to us, the first thing to say is, what was my part? How did I put myself in a position to experience this harm? And what's my part to either get away from it or to smooth it over, or like you said, Dominique, and my recommendation to you is to figure out your part is to figure out how to communicate so that he understands and hears without being defensive, without feeling criticized. That's your part, to communicate well. Now, if he's her husband, you know him well. You know what he responds to, and you know what's going to work with him. Now, sometimes it's really, some kind of a wake-up call where you do something. Not mean, not blindsiding, but saying, I'm just going to go for a walk or a drive. Or I'm just going to go to my girlfriend's overnight. But I'm going to write for you, or I'm going to share with you. This is how I see it, and this is how I think we could get better. So I hope that helps. Did I give you some better ideas or some more ideas than what you've had before? Thank you so much for asking. And any of you who have been listening now or later, don't hesitate to call me, text me, email me, leave me a comment. I'm always interested in what you experience from what I teach and how I can help you move in a constructive direction. Go to my girlfriends? You could do that. So, just to get away and give him some quiet time to think. And I don't see why. Because it gives him some space. And what you want to do is share information and give him some space without you being there so that he can think it through and consider, this obviously was very important to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be going to your girlfriend's house overnight or for the afternoon. Just something that's a statement that doesn't hurt anybody. Just something that's a statement to get attention, to say, this is really, really, really important to me. And my response to this is, I'm not going to make you feel bad. I just really need us to talk about it sincerely and intelligently to see what we might be able to do. I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense to you. I will be back here next Monday night. Looking forward to whoever wants to come and chime in. And so, as always, respect and know yourself, treasure life, and love others. Let me turn.